publishing YouTube broadcast, but I'm probably already live. So, you know what? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Academic Ale House Filthy Casuals podcast. I am joined by no one today. Caesar had some things to take care of in his personal life, and I'm actually currently uh, exporting the first part of the Enola Holmes commentary. So, that should be fun. That'll be uploaded either tomorrow or Monday, depending on how long it's going to take to actually upload to YouTube. Because YouTube can be a slow meandering beast when it wants to be. The Enola Holmes commentary. So, what horrors have I unleashed upon you this week? Well, it's more of a follow-up. This one's probably going to be shorter. It's more of a follow-up to what we talked about last week with D&D removing negative racial modifiers from the game. That article was more of a complaint. The following is an official Wizards of the Coast errata. As for announcements, I am still live streaming on Twitch, on our Twitch channel, Academic Ale House on Twitch. I started Metro this week. Monday, we did Monday and Tuesday. Metro 2033. I'm going to play through the whole trilogy. And essentially, when we get to Metro Exodus, I'm going to basically be reviewing the game. So, look forward to that. I'll probably end up reviewing all three games just as I play through. Because, that's fun too. But mostly it's just a casual playthrough. And after that, I'll probably do Deus Ex, or I'll either do Deus Ex or the Dishonored 1 and 2. Oh, not sure which. And then after that, who knows? Uh, would whatever one I pick will be followed by the next one, and then after that, Cyberpunk 2077 should be coming out in November. So I would think that's probably going to be my next pick. If I'm not once I'm done with Dishonored and everything, so I'm going to pick that. Who knows? I might break down and buy Call of Duty Cold War and do that as well. I'll just play through that campaign because that seems like an interesting thing, and I deserve. And honestly, for bringing Yuri Bezmenov into mainstream relevance, the developers of Call of Duty deserve my money. So I'm gonna do that. That being said, let's get into it, shall we? So this is from comic book cb.com. Dungeons and Dragons officially removes negative racial ability score modifiers from rules. This was published October 5th, so this Monday. And the article we read was dated like September 28th or something. So basically, Wizards saw that the complaint of someone who has never played D&D and now has removed negative racial modifiers. You know, personally, I don't find negative racial modifiers to be that detrimental. Racial modifiers really don't affect play all that much. Negative modifiers as a whole do, but in that case, that's an interesting thing to play around. And right now, I actually just started a game this week with a couple of my roommates that um that's going to end up being that my character is actually he has negative intelligence modifier. So Oh, that's something I'm playing with. And it's not because he's an orc or anything like that. He's just human. He just has a low and I just rolled low on intelligence. All right. So, Dungeons and Dragons players will no longer have a negative ability score modifier when building a character of a certain race. Last week, Dungeons and Dragons officially released an updated errata for a number of their source books and adventures. The Volo's Guide to Monsters errata was particularly important as it removed the negative ability score modifiers to playable kobolds and orcs. While kobolds originally had a -2 modifier to their strength score and orcs had a -2 modifier to their intelligence, the updated rules remove those modifiers entirely from the game. Additionally, the errata also removes the orc's menacing trait with removes the orc's menacing trait with the primal intuition trait, which grants players proficiency in the following two options: animal handling, insight, intimidation, medicine, nature, perception, and survival. So we're just making the orcs not orcs, I guess. You know, that's the Enola Holmes commentary that you all wanted to see. Anyway, so I guess we're just making the orcs not orcs anymore. You know, because that makes total sense. It's why have the orcs be, orcs? Why have the species known for being violent and brutal? Well, and kobolds, like, they're not strong. Why? Like, I don't understand. Negative racial modifiers really don't affect the game all that much. Most racial modifiers don't. Like, it all depends on what you roll for stats or if you're using point buy. Hey, and honestly, if you're using point buy, why wouldn't you play a human? That's personally, I did this last week. Personally, that's why I don't like point buy, especially 27 point buy. I feel that it encourages players to be human because they can basically create a class where, sorry, it's season change, so my sinuses have decided you produce mucus now. Anyway, the point buy system, in my opinion, creates a system that incentivizes playing a human. Because especially 27 point buy, which is what I run into on online games more often than not, because it encourages people to dumps to be highly proficient in one thing and one thing only, but nothing, but and nothing else. So instead of rolling like what you want, you're incentivized to play a human because most of your stats are going to be average instead of negative. The few stats that you're going to have as average, in the one stat that's really, really great, they're going to end up as average instead of negative. It's personally why I like rolling instead of, which it's personally why I like rolling. But I know for online, it's difficult to do that. You have to get everyone in like roll 20 or something so you can. So as a DM, players aren't cheating, so like they don't roll a bunch of stuff, like things like that. Like I get why point buy is popular for mostly online games, but I think it personally I think it incentivizes playing human. However, kobolds are in lore not strong. You could actually argue that personally, actually, I would argue that kobolds deserve a positive strength modifier given that their species is prone to burrowing and mining, but you know, I'm not a wizard's employee. I'm also not someone who bows to the whims of a mob. And that's what this is. Like, you, negative modifiers don't do much. Like, okay, you want to play a kobold barbarian, and okay, just take into account that -2 strength modifier. That -2 strength modifier, and make that -2 strength modifier. Sure, you're probably not going to be doing as much damage as you think you should from the outset, but all you have to do is hit level 4. And for games that start out at like games that start out saying, "Hey, you're level 4, you're level 3, you're level 4 characters, you're level 10 characters." Then those negative racial modifiers don't matter at all. Starting from level 1 they matter, but only so much in as they affect your stats. As they as in they affect the rolls you make. Like if you're playing a kobold a kobold fighter, why don't you take finesse weapons and use dex? Like there are ways around this minus strength modifier. And really, if you're playing a kobold, why do you need to be the strong one? Like that's the problem with these people that want to change Dungeons and Dragons to be for everyone. It is inherently Dungeons and Dragons is not meant for one player. Like there are games, there are RPGs that are meant for one player, but Dungeons and Dragons is not meant for one player. And overcoming the challenges set by your DM is part of the game. So if you have a character that's not that strong and you send them into a challenge of strength, well, that's on your party and that's on y'all as characters for not thinking, we probably shouldn't send this character in because their strength is not actually physical strength. Like, their strength may be magic, it may be detective work, it may be any number of things. Eh, like knowing your party dynamics, knowing the weaknesses and strengths of your party is part of playing the game. And if you remove these negatives, you're just taking away you're just changing how to play the game because you don't like the way the game is played. You're that kid who plays cops and robbers and says and when they get tagged they say I have a force field or whatever. Like that's what these people are doing. As for the menacing trait, hold on. Let me do quick Google because I forgot it said this. D&D. So So according to, let's see. All right. Half orc. So menacing is all menacing is in D&D terms is uh you gain proficiency with intimidation. So that's it. That's what dungeons and that's what wizards changed in the orcs. They said, you know what? Just being naturally more intimidating than just being a naturally more intimidating race than anybody else. Just being naturally intimidating. You know, that's not cool. That's not okay. That's a negative thing. It's not like most of these skills get procced up with get procced by backstory, class choice, by backstory and class choice. Like if you use the background system, you can gain you know, proficiency in some of these. Like why would this need to be a thing? It doesn't. And just being naturally intimidating is enough. And if you're saying play an orc rogue, you already get like half of these anyway because of how many skill proficiencies the orc rogues just get naturally. The updated rules reflect previous comments by the Dungeons and Dragons team that promise better representation and movement towards giving up the player characters individualism as opposed to forcing them to fit within cultural stereotypes within the game's lore. Yeah, here's the problem. It makes sense that the orcs wouldn't value intelligence. Orc society is based upon strength. Might makes right in orc society. In orc society, that's it. If you can't make it, you could be the smartest orc in the camp, but if you can't make it, if you can't fight, you are utterly worthless. And I agree with that. That's an that's a society that interacts with the world in a unique way. Might makes right. Strength is everything. Similar, you don't hear people complaining, "Oh, about what about the Goliaths?" They have a what is essentially a might makes right society. If you They have a might makes right society, but they're not evil. They're not evil and don't secretly portray black people. Well, nobody's complaining about them because they're not evil and don't somehow in these people's twisted logic portray a racial stereotype. Goliaths have relative almost the same society as the orcs, just not like as pillagey. And you can prove and that's the way to prove that this is only skin deep. This is only like bare minimum look into bare minimum look into how the game functions. These people have never played it, never done anything with it. They've only maybe read articles about it or watched Critical Role. Well, that's it. That is these people's total knowledge of D&D. And so they do so their analysis of any sort of content out of it is skin deep. It's so shallow you can't wade in it. A kiddie pool would look at this analysis and be like, "Dude, I'm deeper than you." Like within the game's lore, like all right, the game's lore says that Dragonborn, the game's lore also says that tieflings should by and large be met with suspicion and with suspicion because they're part demon. But nobody seems to be complaining about them. Hmm? You don't hear anything about the tieflings being, oh, I don't know, portrayed as being constantly suspected of doing something, of being evil and whatnot. Not a peep. But the orcs are supposedly black people, well, so we gotta nip that in the bud. Mm, mm-mm. And further in Forgotten Realms lore, the orcs are literally from another world, another plane of existence. Like they're literally from a different world altogether. They're not humans. They're not some weird amalgamation of humans either. They are different species. Like, and again, it proves how shallow these people's thinking is that this is all they see when they read these things. They don't bother to investigate. They don't bother to learn like the lore of the world. Like Volo's guide has an entire section dedicated to these creatures, their society, how they function in how they function in the world of for the Forgotten Realms, and they don't bother with it because orcs are racist. While players can still choose to use the cultural generalities of D&D's various campaign settings when creating a character, the updated rules allow for greater expression and also gives DMs more freedom to create their own worlds where the standard D&D cultural stereotypes aren't present. Okay. Currently, my current campaign is set in a world I didn't create. It's in the Grim Hollow campaign world. It's in the world that the Grim Hollow campaign setting is in. You know what's missing from that campaign setting? Orcs. They're absent. They're extinct. Does that mean that? And you know what's also interesting is that humanity, at one point in the world's history, went on a giant purge of the other races. So does that mean that none of the that it, the Grim Hollow campaign people are white supremacists because they said humans have basically put elves and drove out orcs and put elves and dwarves and made elves and dwarves subservient to them. Hmm? I suppose if you were a very, very shallow journalist and never played a D&D game before, you would think that. But having read the 300-page long campaign guide for Itharis, of the world of that Grim Hollow is set in, the world of Grim Hollow, I can tell you that it's very much not it. You could take that away from it, absolutely, but you'd be taking literally the most shallow interpretation you could. You could. And not really understanding, oh, this is a world without divine protection, without the divine protection of the gods that other worlds have. This is a world that humanity clings on to by humanity may be the dominant species, but they're clinging on by a thread, and that thread set is getting that thread phrase day by day. There's an entire country in on this continent that is ruled by vampires. There is a police state in And this same country, this is a there's a police state of mages. Like there's an empire of men and dwarves that is being terrorized by some sort of eldritch horror. Like if you're not going to learn enough about something to comment on it, why do you comment on it? Because racism, right? I disagree. I think this ruins the game. Because I think this ruins it makes the characters less interesting. There's a reason playing a monstrous race is such an out there concept. It because playing because explaining some to the world that you're not like the rest of your race, that you can be, oh, I don't know, good or even like just wanting to get by. It makes them less interesting for attempting to overcome their own the world's racial stereotypes. Anyway, in addition to removing negative ability score modifiers, Dungeons & Dragons is also introducing a new set of alternative rules that give players the options of moving ability score modifiers to other ability scores to match a character's background. This opens the door for more non-traditional character builds such as Orc Wizard or Halfling Barbarian. These are two things that I guarantee you existed before this and will have existed before this. God damn it. I keep clicking the wrong thing. These are two things that I guarantee you have existed before this. You know why? Because people don't care. Because people want to play what they want to play. I've seen twice a halfling barbarian. Twice. You know, like, it's not something that, oh, it's not that, oh, this person isn't proficient in strength or anything like that. It's, hey, I want to play this character because I think it'd be interesting and fun. I think it'd be interesting and fun. And, okay, here's how. Okay, let's roll them stats. All right, I get a -2 to intelligence, but I rolled an 18. But I rolled a 16. But I rolled an 18. What's up worse than you? But I rolled an 18. So it doesn't matter because I'll still have a 16 for my intelligence. Or you could be like, oh, well, I rolled a 15 for my intelligence. Hey, DM, I really want to play an Orc Wizard. Can we just maybe just make it a -1 instead of a -2 to intelligence? Sure, why not? Or no, I think it'd be more I'll let you cast. I think it'd be more interesting to have you play an Orc Wizard who isn't as smart as everybody else. Well, due to some backstory due to backstory. Or escaping the society that brought you up meant you didn't get the opportunity to study as much as other wizards. So you have a naturally so you're not as intelligent as everybody as some other wizards might be. These alternative rules will appear in the upcoming Tosh's Cauldron of Everything, which will be released later this year. You can check out all the errata as well as the updated compendium of frequently asked questions on D&D's webpage. Worse than you just came in at the end. But anyway, yeah, this is on more analysis by people who've never played D&D before. They're very, very shallow. It's very, very shallow. Which, you would expect from people who've never played D&D before. No, that's what I wanted. Okay. Yeah, like, so orcs are no longer menacing. They're not naturally more a species that, for if you're playing in the Forgotten Realms is, known for pillaging and seizing land and burning homes and slaughtering people. That's not an intimidating thing to have walking around random city number 1. And nobody would bat an eye about it if an orc were to just wander in and out of the blue one day with a party of adventurers. That wouldn't be weird. Heard it all. Like, if these are the best example, an orc wizard and a halfling barbarian, if these are the best examples of weird class combinations that you can come up with, it's like, come on, really? You think people haven't played these things before? Like, nobody's gone off the wall and said, I'm gonna play a fucking orc wizard. Why not? You know what the weirdest D&D character I've ever heard of? And this is not first-hand knowledge. This is like third or fourth-hand knowledge. There's an there's a D&D campaign out there. Maybe it's ended, maybe it hasn't. There's a D&D campaign out there with one of the party members who one of the party members therein is a corgi, a little dog with no tail, and floppy ears and stubby legs. The queen has them. If your best example is off like non-traditional character builds such as orc wizard or halfling barbarian, you don't know D&D. You don't know how to play, you don't know anything about it. Please stop ruining my game. Yes, I have nerd rage. That took actually a lot less time than I was expecting. No, actually, I figured it'd take about 30 minutes. So, I'm going to close it out here. I know this week and last week were shorter episodes, and worse than you, I know you just got here. But unless you want me to stick around, the next thing I'm going to do is start playing Pokemon Showdown on here and just do random battles. Other than that, like I've said my piece. I've said my piece on this, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. So, uh, yeah, I guess thank you all so much for sticking around for, the 30 minutes that this episode was live. Uh Look forward next week. Myself and Caesar will be doing an academic alehouse together where we will be responding to a video, and that will be an entire series in and of itself. So we've got a lot of content hopefully coming live this week. First part of Enola Holmes. The second part should be up once I finish editing it after next week, probably on next Sunday, hopefully. After that, I don't know what we'll be doing. We'll see what Captain Dunn has, because he might want to be in on that sort of watching things, the commentary series. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I know it seems like not worthwhile, but it is. Trust me. Having I know YouTube is most likely suppressing this channel, so having people share our content and like it does help. Well, so thank you so much. Much.